have in a city council. The wisdom that was put forth by previous councils and looks like is continuing to be put forth with the sewer fund. I mean, it's genius, and I'm really glad, really proud to live in a city that takes finances so seriously. You know, over the past few months, the conversation around the library itself has been passionate. If I'm honest, at times it has felt like this council, the leadership here, has, instead of trying to fight for the decisions that were made by the previous council, has been looking for ways to squash it. The conversations that have taken place, the April 17th meeting, it hasn't looked like leadership, it's looked like politics. Now, I say that because my mind was changed on April 17th when the council voted to approve it. It was great. And the plan that you guys have put in place here with borrowing from the sewer fund and then paying back, it's brilliant. It's genius. It's a way that we're not costing the city money in order to acquire this property. And in fact, we look to set ourselves better up for whatever future sewer needs that we need. So this is great. I'm so glad that we've got great, smart people on this. You guys are incredible. I really hope that you decide to move forward on it and approve this. And I really hope that this isn't used as an opportunity to try to kind of do a back end against the decisions that have already been made. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Mr. John Drott.
John Drott, 23951 Southmount Road, still smiling. As Councillor Ayers said earlier, just before this public part of it opened up, this was a known piece of this project, and it was a known piece in April 17th when you all made your decision. It seems to me like this should be a very simple housekeeping meeting. I'm a little befuddled as to why so many people have to spend so much of their times this evening arguing back and forth. It seems to me like it should be very straightforward. There is one issue I'd like to bring up. It's slightly tangent but pertinent, I think. I've heard even before the whole meeting started this evening a rumor back in the back row about the building being obsolete in 15 years, and I've heard people claim that the architect said such a thing. I viewed the video from the Planning Commission meeting that took place recently, and what the architect said was they only study up to 15 years because you can't go beyond 15 years with any kind of reliability. It's simply impossible to predict beyond that point. And what their assessment showed was that the facility would be adequate for Canby's needs at 15 years. And you simply can't discuss anything beyond that. I'm confident it's going to be adequate for Canby for generations to come. So I'd like to see that rumor be put to rest post haste. Finally, this whole issue of whether we should risk buying the Cub property, how much of a risk is it? To me, it strikes of the parable of the three talents. And I'm not going to go into the parable because I'm not skilled at that kind of discussion. But it seems as though there are people in this community who are hoping that you will bury your one talent in this situation, when I see this as the perfect opportunity for Canby to invest in itself and allow itself to flourish. I look forward to moving forward so that we can continue raising the final few $100,000 of the funds. And since the April 17th meeting, as Penny related, we've already generated $400,000 just in the last 2 months. And I was on vacation for a few of those weeks, so look forward to moving forward.
Thank you, John. Wayne Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you. My name is Wayne Scott. I live at 2360 East Madrona Lane. I come to you to discuss areas of concern that I have, not only with the actions that you will take tonight the actions you have taken up to this point. I think that the projections that you have, or the projections that you have made to the citizens of Canby and the people in the business community that you are doing is absolutely wrong. The application has been turned down 3 times by your planning commission because it was submitted incorrectly. The next process will probably be appealing it to yourselves, the applicants who made the errors in the first place, and then you will probably vote to approve it and override your planning commission. I think that's all wrong. I can tell you that if a private developer brought that project, it would never get out of planning department to ever get to the planning commission to reject it. We wouldn't have the opportunity to do as you have the opportunity to do and override your own planning commission. As far as the money is concerned.
On this one?
Well, with all due respect, Mr. Parker, the others weren't talking about finances, but rather why we should build the library. I think Mr. Scott should be able to finish.
That's not the point I'm worried about, that Mr. Scott was mentioning that this board may become a board of appeals, and we're taking testimony on something that we may become a board of appeals on, and I just don't want us to contaminate the record
Joe?
that we serve several roles, quasi-judicial, sometimes appeals, and if we're talking about the potential of being an appeals board, shouldn't we wait to discuss that until we have staff reports, proponents and opponents?
Well, the evidence is in a public hearing, and it's in front of everybody, so everybody knows that everybody's heard this, and so it doesn't fly afoul of like ex parte contact.
Okay.
So we're safe in that regard. I appreciate the caution. Otherwise, you know, he could. I mean, this isn't technically evidence. If he wanted to be heard at the meeting, he would have to come to that meeting and actually be heard on that matter in order to effectuate any sort of appeal rights that he himself would want to retain.
And I think if we don't debate it here, then we're not contaminating it.
Correct.
Sorry, Wayne, I just didn't want us running afoul of the legal issues.
I'm certain.
Thank you, gentlemen. Wayne?
You're proposing tonight to raid the sewer fund for $1 million and obligate it for 10 years at a rate of 5%, of which you're proposing to raise the funds to do that, and you're taking that money, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but you just raised the sewer rates 10% this month. And so if we don't need that money, the $1 million that we're going to take or potentially take tonight, why do we need to raise the sewer rates 10% in order to get those funds so that you can borrow it to yourself and build other things that we may or may not need, or that we may or may not be able to afford would probably be a better way of saying it rather than whether we need it or not. If you don't need the reserves, don't raise the rates. As Councilman Ayers said, it's 12 to 17 years before you have to do major renovation. I don't know if that's true or not. I've taken him for his word. But why are you taking the money now? Why are you taking the money out of the fund? How do we repay it? We're going to sell these properties. I can tell you that appraisals are worth the value of the paper they're printed on. Just because it's appraised at something has absolutely no relevance to what it will sell for. I can tell you I'm going through a deal with the state to acquire some of my land, of which they're going to get eventually. And it isn't any ways near the price that the appraisal is at, and mine is on Highway 99E that they're acquiring. And so it's not even remotely close to what those two things will sell for. Then you have contamination on this piece that you undoubtedly are going to have to go through and clean up. You have many dollars that are affected. And then you go and deal with a building that has a basement in it that you're going to convert to a brew pub or something behind a public library. Logic. I believe that several others in town think that you are operating quite a joke in how you're going through this and how you've approved it up to this point. And for a cost of a little over, somewhere in the neighborhood of what I read last night, of $12 million, it's really not a joke. And it's not a joke when you take $1 million out of a fund that is promised to be used for something very particular, and you intentionally raise our rates 10% this month in order to help build that fund. I think that's all very, very bad planning. Can't imagine how you're going to operate a building 3 times the size of the current one when you loan the current one about $70,000 a year to operate, but you're going to operate one 3 times the size and have the funds to do that. Pretty good to me.
Need you to wrap up your comments there, Mr. Scott.
I will wrap up my comments.
you.
I also was unaware that I was limited to 3 minutes, and I'd requested to be put on the agenda as
You
a
did.
particular subject, and I was told that I would be able to come and speak. So I resent the fact that I'm limited to 3 minutes when I went out of my way to request time to speak on this whole issue. So with that, I think you're doing something that is very wrong. I know the process. I think you have some people on this council have a conflict of interest, if not legally, because you're going to pass a resolution. Certainly morally you do. And I think it's dead wrong to put your city, our city, in the position that you're putting it in. I'm not opposed to a library. I'm opposed to the methodology that's gone through this and how we've switched from first because we can't use their building to second. The planning of it is atrocious as far as I'm concerned. So, thank you for the time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Batridge, you had deferred. Did you?
No.
No. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for your comments and for being here. Pardon me?
There's no others.
Those are all URA.
I was not able to get my card in. I was out in the hall.
Brian, it's probably the same subject as the URA thing. I mean, you might give them that option.
Okay. Thank you. Jason, I will, as a matter of order, sorry, that was written for URA comment. Mr. Backstrom and Ms. Savory, did you want to address now or wait till the URA?
I don't really understand what we've signed up for. We want to speak similarly to what's been going on here already. We thought it was appropriate to do it in the URA meeting, but we want to certainly do it before you folks move to any action.
Then I think now would be in order, so Mr. Patton, do you mind a second? Thank you. We'll go ladies first. Ms. Savory?
I'm going to defer to Bob.
Okay. So Mr. Backstrom, you, sir.
Thank you.
And thank you. If we can, Mr. Backstrom, if we can keep it to our issue of the sewer reserve fund movement and not rehash the library piece in its entirety.
I'm going to touch on issues that have already been touched on.
Okay. That's fine.
Okay. Come to you as a neighborhood activist. I've been neighborhood chair for many years. I sat through the police station bonding issue, and it was roundly defeated by the citizens of this city because it was a Taj Mahal and we wanted something smaller that we could afford. We never got to vote on it again. The Urban Renewal Agency turned around and built one without the neighborhood's input, without any citizen input, and no citizen in this city has ever had the right to vote on any urban renewal issue that has come before this body or your urban renewal body. The neighbors that I know in my neighborhood and in my neighborhood association, they have given up. They don't come to these meetings because they know the city is going to do what it's going to do anyway. They feel there's no value in showing up. The city does what it wants to do regardless of what their input is. They have been denied the right to vote. I want to say to you that we appreciate your leadership on this issue, but serious new developments have arisen. The time to revisit this is now. You've been patient and conscientious. You've followed staff's recommendations. You've listened to concerned citizens. But in spite of your leadership, lots of things have happened that require a mature reopening of this issue. When red flags have popped up, congratulations to you for having the courage to revisit those past decisions, because new developments impact our future on this issue. Just last month, the library planner submitted plans that do not meet city building codes. There is no guarantee that these plans will ever pass the City Planning Commission. You've also recently been told that there's contaminated soil under the property, which could result in years of EPA monitoring and oversight, and who knows how many dollars that's going to cost. And just 10 days ago, in response to questions from the audience, the architect did reluctantly tell the Planning Commission, and I was there, that the new library will be obsolete in less than 15 years, before it's even paid for. And tonight you're being asked for $1 million for a questionable land purchase. You are not to blame for this. You did not ask for this. You did not plan this. But you will be held responsible for it, and you will take the heat. Consider tomorrow morning, how will you explain to your neighbors that you committed millions of their tax dollars to a municipal project that has no guarantee of ever being completed and will likely never generate a dime? On April 17th, there were two principal factors that influenced the vote reversal. One was the severe financial penalty that the city would face, and the other was because the public had showed up in strength. Tonight, those factors are no longer valid, because you now know that there are legal and ethical ways to spend that bond money without financial penalty. Regarding public opinion, in 2011, thousands of Canby citizens voted against funding any urban renewal projects without a vote of the people. That was a clear mandate from thousands of our residents in a 70-30 landslide. Did you bother to look into that? I don't think so. And last September, when former Mayor Carson cast that deciding vote for this very library, he was defeated in a landslide vote less than 2 months later. Why? Because he said yes to the library. It was 4-3. The citizens spoke. That was a clear mandate from thousands of Canby citizens. So now what do? Too many things have gone wrong, too many components have changed, too many costs have been incurred, too many risks have yet to be resolved, and all the while, thousands of your constituents do not support this project. You can't look at this audience and say 40 people is a majority. They're the only ones who showed up. They couldn't pass Randy Carson's mayor election. The citizens who are not here tonight, the thousands of Canby citizens who have spoken, they expect you to please do what they want you to do. You cannot continue to spend additional funds on a constantly moving target, because if you do, you are speculating with taxpayers' money. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Address the time.
I will. As a matter of order, he had 6 minutes because the person in front of him deferred their time to him. So that's why he had the longer than 3-minute time. Thank you, Mr. Backstrom. Jason Padden.
Good evening, Council. I'm Jason Padden, 1040 North Birch Street, former City Council member. In regards to spending this money to move forward with the acquisition of this property and project, I will remind you that not only the council that I sat on, but the council before me had a vision to actually purchase all the property on this block, including the Oliver Insurance Building, and use it for a municipal complex. So I do not see how you going back on not only one council, but many councils before you on a vision that they had to better this community can be just and right. Case in point, this project is not just a library project, it's a city facilities project. To put it bluntly, our city facilities are a joke. I mean, you've got finance in a house that's essentially could fit in my garage. There's 7 or 8 people out in the hallway who can't even hear what's going on in here. You're spread out over multiple pieces of property. This project, I dare say, again, in consolidating all of these facilities and putting the city operations under one roof will capture cost savings in equipment, in man hours and labor going back and forth and so on and so forth. This project, whether it's mired in all this controversy that people are cooking up, you said you were going to do this, now it's time to do it. Don't have a repeat of the meeting that we had last time where you voted no and then you went back and voted yes, because that was a shame. Follow through with what you said you were going to do to meet myself and many other people sitting here and the community that you represent and make this happen. That's it.
Thank you, sir. I have a card from Lizzie Morris, who wants to defer her 3 minutes to Wayne Scott. So Wayne, if you wanted to come back up and add any other.
I think, to continue my comments, that you have moved the ball forward with money from, I think, the URD funds, which none of you were on the council when the URD was passed. Those funds, then what the promises were made and all of the discussions that went through to finally get that approved, which I totally am in favor of, I think that you have used very poorly, and the council prior to you have used very poorly, and this will be a continuance of that. And in my opinion, 10 years from now, when that note comes due to the sewer fund, the URD will pay that, because you will never sell those properties for $1 million, 1.23 to pay it back. And I think that you will continue to take out, I don't see how anyone, a logic, practical, economic matter could ever say that you can operate that thing and not have to take money from the general fund to operate it at a greater amount than what you've taken for the last several years to operate the current one. As far as the properties that it's going to replace or that will be utilized in a different fashion, maybe it is a benefit to Canby. But you use the money when you have the money. Borrowing it is not always the best answer, and borrowing it to further ourselves, you folks may or may not be gone in 2 or 4 years or some number to that, but the taxpayers will continue to pay that for many, many, many years. And we will continue to pay the sewer fund for many, many years. And I think it's atrocious, and I think it's dead wrong that you should be allowed to take money from one fund to, and obligate that fund and raise rates to so to speak, offset that. I think that it is wrong. I think that you need to correct the poor decisions that you have made in the past and use some logic in the economics of it and have a realization. If you can come up with a legitimate way of raising the money to build the thing and to buy it, the land, I'm all for it. I don't believe in rating the URD for it. I don't think that's what it was initially passed for. I know that's not what it was initially passed for. The fire department has never got anything that they were promised the years ago when URD was passed. They're the ones that should be in here crying to you and telling you, you aren't using the money the way the previous councils that passed that thing promised for it to be used. And I was at every meeting. I know the promises that were made. We are not using that money the way it was proposed to be done. With that, cast your vote. Make it the way you see fit. You are our elected officials. We only get opportunities at certain times to tell you how we feel. And I think that was done a few months ago, and I think it will be done again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Craig Shin.
So thanks for letting me speak. Craig Shin. I live here in Canby, moved first to Canby in 1977, and have sat in a variety of chairs around the city of Canby. So, first of all, Mayor Hudson, you said you didn't want to rehash the library decision. So I'm going to assume that we're not rehashing that, and I'd like to move forward.
Okay.
Here's the point that I would like to make. In the life of public officials today, when we make large decisions, then there are a whole series of incremental decisions that follow. It is not a one-time deal. There are always going to be some new information. There's always going to be new challenges when we try to do something like build a new library. That was true of every one of the projects that we've completed. And this is one of those incremental steps. I think the decision before you is not only a good decision in terms of the financial well-being of the people who live in Canby, but it's the right decision because it furthers the goal and objective that you established in April. And so I would encourage you to make the incremental decisions that allow us to move forward and know that there are a lot of people that think that that's the right thing to do. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Craig.
Kristen Morris?
Kristen Morris, 1744 Southeast 10th Place in Canby. And I have become a late joiner to this whole discussion about the library, and I actually just wrote an email about this because while I'm not opposed to libraries as a whole, love books, all of that, I can tell you as a mother of 4 children, 3 of which are in school right now, libraries are not of importance to them. I'm sorry, but that is just the reality of it. You've got kids that are doing all of their research right now from the comfort of their own home. They're doing that with internet in the home. If you ask my kids, if you ask my kids' friends, even though they have the library time at school, when that translates to ever using a public library, it doesn't happen. It's not necessary. We're in a different time now where you don't need to go to the library to do your research. So for us to now have this debt be thrown upon us where, I'm sorry, already our property taxes are pretty prohibitive compared to where we've lived before. Now you talk about $10 million debt that we're going to be burdened with from here on till when. I'm not sure that I can see that this is going to be of benefit to us as a community, and I'm completely opposed to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Craig Morris?
So I'm Craig Morris, 1744 Southeast 10th Place. I've been in this community since '97. I've been involved with all sporting event, sporting coaching, sports from soccer, baseball, you name it, been involved in it. Dealt with kids in this community for all this time. And, and Mr. Parker knows that I'm involved with the school. I'm very, very much into education, making sure kids' minds are broadened. But again, none of those kids, and I'm talking hundreds of kids I deal with on a yearly basis, they don't go to the library. And I'm talking kids from first grade all the way through the high school that I'm involved in. And so if we're talking about our future and da-da-da-da, the kids are not going to the library. They go home, they get on their iPads, they get on their iPhones or whatever, they do their research there. To burden those kids and to make our taxes potentially go to a point where my kids, when he graduates in 2 years from high school and 4 years from college, can't come and live in this community because our taxes are too high, that doesn't seem like that's a smart move for our community. I think the money could be better spent to put bring businesses into this community. We need to be more thoughtful of our dollar, and I do agree with, we can't keep borrowing money we don't have. This community is also anti-growth, as we know, as far as putting in new houses and things like that. Getting an annexation is almost impossible in this community. And so we don't want to grow, but we want to keep adding more and more tax dollars to be spent, but no way to pay it back. So until the community changes their whole outlook on everything, spending $10 million that is not available doesn't seem like the most fiscally responsible thing for the longevity and for my children and my grandchildren and my family that wants to live here, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. So we are adamantly opposed to this and feel that the money could be better spent bringing more business and more communities and more people to our community versus just taxing everybody out of it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sharon Trimble.
My name is Sharon Trimble. I live at 1450 North Ivy, and I proudly serve on the Bike and Ped Committee. I didn't realize my name was going to come up twice before I came up here, and actually I had no intention of speaking. But with these people coming forward and saying they're experts because they have kids, well, I'm an expert too. I have a 13-year-old daughter that's biologically my kid. Lots of people mistake me for her grandmother, understandably, but I'm not. My daughter loves going to the library. And yes, we have internet computer at home. She loves to go to the library. She's been a part of the summer reading program in the past here. And when we lived in LeGrand, the only thing she talks about that's better in LeGrand than in Canby is, guess what? The library. I encourage you all to go to rural redneck Eastern Oregon and tour LeGrand's library. She loves going to the library. It's a big deal to her. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon.
Is it Kathy, is it Whiting?
Whiting.
Thank you.
Kathy Whiting, 165 Northeast 14th, Canby. This will be very short. I'm on the library board. I've been a volunteer shelver at the library for something like 8 years. I've heard people testifying their sort of individual impressions of whether or not children check out books or not. I would urge the council, before taking anybody's word for it, to go check out the actual circulation figures at the library. I have been amazed as a shelver at the armloads of children's books that go out the doors of that library every day. Well, I can't say every day, but when I've been there. And the shelving and the books that stack up in the back room that need to be put back on the shelves. The children's books. Yes, children are reading. Take a look at the circulation figures yourselves. That'll speak more than anything I think that anybody says. That's data.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, I have officially run out of cards.
It's only 9 o'clock.
And it's only 9 o'clock. Yeah.
We're just getting started.
Goals to be done before tomorrow. Thank you, everyone, both for and not for what we have before us this evening. We've had our staff report and comments, so I will open it up for a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move adoption of Resolution 1169, a resolution authorizing an intergovernmental agreement for the loaning of money from the City of Canby to the Urban Renewal Agency and pledging of tax increment revenues.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Councilor Ayers, second by Councilor Coleman, for Resolution 1169, authorizing an IGA for the loaning of money from the City of Canby to the Urban Renewal Agency and pledging of tax incremental revenues. Discussion. I will open up the floor, and then, as I said, thank you to everyone for your comments. Mr. Patton, you spoke about the state of our buildings for the city, and I agree with you. We have some dire need of attention on our buildings. And Mr. Pito, is that correct, Pito? Is it Pito or is it something different? It is Pito. Okay, make sure I'm saying it right. You asked the question, why settle for less of a bad option? Or you asked, settle for, or we've got a bad, less than a bad option. My question is, why do we settle for less than bad? Why not fight for the best option for Canby? We've had a lot of conversation, and you're right. Many of you brought up the point about the last meeting and wanting the council to move on and get with the program. That is correct. I did say that, and I want us to move forward on it as a whole. I don't know if that's going to happen. I have deep concerns about taking funds from our sewer reserves and putting them into the library. We are taking an additional $1 million to now balloon the project to $11.5 million, and that is a concern for me. We are not sure totally what those properties will sell back for. We don't know. That's an unknown. We don't know if the library is going to be successful and generate revenue. We don't know. My crystal ball doesn't work that way. My concerns being that we are looking at using these funds to correct our mistake by not addressing the land issue at the very beginning, almost a year ago. And I think by approving this, we are now driving this project to a grand total of $11.5 million. We now overshot our initial budget by $1.2 million, and we haven't even broken ground yet. Our job is to worry about the overall health of our community financially and our sustainability. We heard at our budget committee meeting from our finance director, we are eating through our reserves at a rapid rate. That is a concern. I want to see a new library. I met with the Friends of the Library Board, and I told them that I wanted to see a new library for Canby. I want a library that is big and houses all the books that we could have, as well as improve our city staff situation. I have real concern that we go this route. That's my 2 cents. I will open it up for any other questions or discussion points.
Mr. Mayor, can I add?
Yes.
I had the good fortune last evening to attend a meeting at the community room at the police station by Patty Webb, who's viewed as a foremost expert on downtown Main Streets. And I'm a member of the Main Street Committee here in Canby, and she's the Main Street manager in the city of McMinnville and has been for a lot of years. And she's been faced over the years with many, many challenges. One of the challenges she had years ago was their downtown vacancy rate was in the 17% range. She put together a team, put together their wish list, you might say, and really didn't wait for the phone to ring. They went out and sought out those businesses that they wanted in that community, and they built a thriving downtown. And this past week, my wife and I traveled over to Sisters, Oregon, to go to the rodeo. And that little town is humming on all cylinders. When I think about this community, the Scotts built my wife and I a house about 9 years ago and did a beautiful job. And we love this community, and everyone in this room loves this community. We're proud to be a part of it. I've had my business here for 5 years. I was part of the First Avenue project, which I think is a big benefit. And I just see that, one of the things that happens is people don't like change because it represents uncertainty. And I think that the Cub property coming available is an obstacle, but it represents an opportunity. And I think that that opportunity should, what I think could happen, I think Mr. Scott raises many great points, but I think that we can work with the Planning Commission, and I think that because of this Cub property coming up, I would tend to favor at least the library structure being built with a foundation that could handle a second floor if need be. And under that scenario, whether that be right out of the gate or in the future, that could mean that the old library could be sold off, the Cub could be sold off, and you put that money into making those additional costs covered. So I'm very optimistic about the future of this community. I think, working on the budget for the first time, you can really build a compelling case for growth. And, as the industrial park fills in, I think every effort needs to be put into not being afraid of growth, but really trying to attract the right businesses to our community, because I think our best days are in front of us.
Thank you, sir. Any other discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. I echo many of your points, so I'm not going to go into great detail, other than I just want to say that the reality of this is, I've had people ask me, how did $5.7 million become almost $12 million? So this is the path we took from 5.7 to 12 million. 5.7 is actually the number of urban renewal dollars. This is for the sake of the cameras, by the way. Some people have been asking me this. 5.7 million is urban renewal money. 1 million was committed from the county's library district. 1 million was committed by the library. So it brings the library actually to 7.7. But the reality is the project isn't going to go forward with just a library and not do the rest of the project, which is the conversion of the restoration of City Hall and the conversion of the old library into city offices. So that brings the project to 10.1 million. Now, we're going to propose to add $1.23 million to an already unpopular project. I realize it's popular in this room tonight. We also haven't talked about the fact that we own a building with urban renewal money at the end of the block that would be bulldozed, that we paid $600,000 for. So that's really included in the cost of the library as one of those hidden costs. So that's how you get to your $11.9 million, plus $72,000 a year to house Cat elsewhere. My point being, other than to explain the path from 5.7 to 12 million, is that we're at a point where we're not really here to discuss whether or not we want a library. Contrary to popular belief, I even would like a new library. But I'd also like to take my children to Disneyland, but I'm not going to put it on a credit card. I think it's irresponsible that we've proceeded this far without the land deal done. But I think borrowing for once can mean ruin, and it's just fiscal insanity what we're talking about tonight. So I urge my colleagues to be on the side of caution here and not rob one fund to pay another.
Okay. Thank you. Any other discussion pieces?
I'm wondering if there was ever a precedent for taking monies, borrowing monies from the city budget to use in the URA for a project in the URA. Have we done that in the past?
Not that I'm aware of.
I've never heard of it. And, you know, I've listened to all the people talk, pro and against. And the one thing I haven't heard, and I mentioned this in the April meeting, was that no one talks about the will of the people being able to vote on something. This is the difference between the URA and any other aspect of our municipality, is that the city, if we have a need outside of our budget, we go to a referendum, a ballot measure, and the people get to express their views. I get to express mine as a taxpayer. But the URD was created in such a way, and this is by the state statute, that only the people that sit on the URD can make that decision. So the people, the voters, have no voice in the matter. And I believe personally, that's why I ran for this office, and when I did, and I went out and campaigned house to house, I told the people where I stood on the URD and where I stood on the library if I'd been on the council at that time. And the vast majority of the people I talked to said they were also against the library. I'm not against, as I said earlier, I'm not against libraries. I use the library all the time. But I do not believe that we are in an economic upturn, that we are economically viable at this point to take this kind of a step and put this kind of money into a library at this time. We had the previous administration last year in July passed the building of the library, the funding of it. They sold the bonds. But the one thing they didn't plan on, and they had from July until I came into office, to make the decision to purchase this property that we want to put the library on.
when we made that decision in April, I was not aware of the fact that we were not going to just swap the land, that old police station with Cub, for this land here that we're going to build the library on. They had from July till December to make that decision, to talk to Cub and get them to make the agreement, but it didn't turn out that way. It had to come into this administration. And now we're looking at the standpoint that we've got to borrow from the city, again, without taxpayers' approval, to borrow this money to buy property. I don't know if anyone knows this, but, and I don't know if I can make this known at the time, but I think I remember hearing in one of our workshops that when Cub got this property back in 1978 or 75, whenever it was, we had, according to papers, valued that property at $16,000 or something. Did I misunderstand that we gave that to them? They didn't have to pay for that property at that time?
I don't know.
Well, I've got folders, but I don't know.
Okay, and I thought you had looked it up.
But that was.
And now they are turning around and telling us we're going to have to buy it.
Well, it's theirs.
I know it's theirs. Yeah, we gave it to them. But we were talking about swapping one property for the other, and now we're going to have to spend $1.2 million that was not a part of this discussion last year, and it came out since I've been on the city council. And so this is why I believe that we should not, at this time, go ahead with the library, because we have never allowed the people to vote on this, to have a decision URD or with the city funds now.
Just if I can clarify one thing, and I won't go into the detail, but when you say we gave them the property, they were us. They were a city agency, and it was spinning off, just like you spin a subsidiary off from one corporation to another. You turn over certain assets that is part of that organization. Now, we're not a publicly traded company, so there's no stock. In the case of, a spin-off, the parent company gets the stock or some stock in the company. So them was us, and that was the assigned dollar values was simply for the purpose of the arm's length, transaction. The attorneys and the CPAs and the crowd could tell us what that is, but them was us.
Okay.
It wasn't like we gave it to the Russians.
Appreciate the clarification.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for clarifying. Any other discussion pieces?
Mr. Mayor, my concerns have been said in the past, and in our workshops, I've expressed the concern about the funding mechanism. And that's what I'm focused on, is the funding mechanism of this particular purchase. That concern hasn't changed, and that's where I am tonight. I opposed borrowing from the capital funds, the sewer fund, to fund the transit center a year and a half ago. And I am consistent with that position tonight.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I call for the question.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to call for a roll call vote. Kim, please.
Counselor Ayers?
Yes.
Counselor Hensley?
No.
Counselor Coleman?
Yes.
Counselor Dale?
No.
Counselor Parker?
Yes.
Counselor Ryder?
No.
In the instance of a tie like this in 3-3, this is when the mayor has gets to participate, and in the case of a tie like this, and my vote is a no at this time. So that resolution goes down 4-3. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. We'll move on to the next resolution, Kim.
The next item we have is Resolution 1160. This is adopting an interagency agreement with the Canby Swim Club. This is the annual resolution that we do, and we changed the wording a little this year, so we don't have to bring it back every year. There's no changes in the fees. We made it 5 years unless they decide to charge the swim club more, then we can do it sooner.
I appreciate that change. It's this is a long-term relationship and understanding between us and the with the swim club, and I think it's a great benefit to the high school and to the city. So, great. Any questions or comments on this? Well, I will accept take a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move for Resolution 1160, a resolution adopting an interagency agreement between the City of Canby and the Canby Swim Club, Inc.
Great. May I have a second?
Second.
Counselor Dale, sorry, motion made by Counselor Dale, second by Counselor Hensley to approve Resolution 1160, adopting an interagency agreement with Canby Swim Club, Inc. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes 6-0.
The next item we have is Resolution 1162. The next few resolutions are all budgets, so I'm just going to hand it over to Haley. 1162 is adopting the budget, making appropriations, and imposing categorizing tax for the 2013-2014 fiscal year. Oh, excuse me, should be Resolution 1161, verifying the city has met requirements to receive state shared revenue money.
Thank you, Kim. Haley?
So this resolution is required by ORS 221.760, and it basically verifies that as a city, we have provided enough services to be eligible to receive state shared revenue.
Great, and the part of that, the services that we have to provide to meet that requirement, things like police protection, fire, sanitary, storm sewer, planning and zoning, we meet 5 of the 7 requirements for that, so we are eligible to receive money from the state. Great. Any questions from staff? Okay, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move for Resolution 1161, a resolution verifying that the City of Canby has met the requirements to receive state shared revenue money.
Great. A second?
Second.
Thank you. A motion made by Counselor Dale, second by Counselor Ryder, to approve Resolution 1161, verifying city has met requirements to receive state shared revenue money. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Passes 6-0. Now 1162.
So the resolution you have in front of you is the budget as approved by the Budget Committee, but it also includes the interfund loan. So since you have not approved the interfund loan, I don't know if you would like to make amendments to the budget resolution that is before you. Other than that, I believe I made all my comments during the Budget Committee meetings, but I believe the city administrator has something to add.
I do, Mr. Mayor. On the transit fund section, right now, personal services has $282,051, and I want to move a portion of that down to materials and services. And I'm not sure, I don't have the amounts in front of me. Some of it we want to leave in personal services.
I
Do you have a
can pull
number?
those up in just a moment.
Haley, okay.
Been through this so many times, you'd think I know where it is.
Just so everyone is aware, Haley is checking on making sure that we are moving numbers correctly and appropriately?
So the amount that's currently budgeted for a transit director position is $114,833. So I assume that is the portion we would like to move from personal services to materials and services.
That is correct.
I'm assuming that comes from salary and benefits then, two line items, because I didn't see the 114 number. Okay.
Yeah,
you
no, I
say-
just added salary and benefits.
Perfect, okay.
Can you say that amount again, please, Haley?
$114,833.
Okay.
So we're moving that from personnel, meaning an employee, down to
Materials and services.
Materials and services, which means
Yeah.
that we have money available to
For
renew her contract.
Okay.
Thank you, Greg, for that.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on, any other questions or for staff on the budget piece? I'll take a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move for Resolution 1162, a resolution adopting the budget, making appropriations, and imposing and categorizing tax for the 2013 to 2014 fiscal year. Kim, can we say as amended, or do we need to do in two steps? All right. As amended by moving $114,833 from the Transit Fund personnel services down to materials and services. Pardon? In the transit fund.
Okay. Do we need to include the other aspect, Kim?
The interloan fund piece, do we need to
sorry.
say anything about that?
It's in the resolution as presented by management, so.
Yeah, so we can just take that out before you sign it, since that resolution was not adopted.
Okay.
But you do want that removed.
Yes. Okay, so I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion made by Counselor Dale, second by Counselor Ryder for Resolution 1162, adopting the budget, making appropriations and imposing and categorizing tax for the 2013-14 fiscal year as amended for the interfund loan and moving $114,833 from the director line into materials and services. All those in favor? Oh. So discussion's being called? So discussion?
You want to
Anyone?
go first, or?
I just want to make sure that we have.
Any other budget comments?
Well, I'll just comment that, as most are aware, I voted no against the budget. At the committee level, I do thank Greg Ellis for moving the CAT piece, because that was one of my pieces that gave me heartburn. The other is, there's two pieces. One, we were presented a balanced budget. Well, it's balanced, sort of. I have a great level of discomfort with the perceived shell game of moving and having the URD absorb salaries. Makes the city budget look healthier than it truly is. And we also were boasting about no cuts to services. However, we were also told that all across the board we cut 2%. So truly the cops versus books conversation is here, because as we all know, we're giving the library $70,000 of general fund support.